the Worth Knowing live stream. We're on the Cliff's Edge channel on YouTube, my very own Substack, Worth Knowing with Matt Robeson. We're on Facebook, Twitter, Twitch, LinkedIn. We have more platforms crowding around us than Trump had European leaders desperately trying to prevent him from doing something horrible at the White House yesterday. And that's, unfortunately, what we need to start with. Something that's halfway between a theory and a given. A few months ago, right around Trump's Liberation Day tariff announcement, it became popular to apply the acronym TACO to him. It stands for Trump Always Chickens Out. When he accepted the Qatari jet and the $1 million play crypto dinner bribe fest, I suggested that we should change that to TACO. Trump always cashes out. But the real pattern might be another twist on that acronym, TACO. Trump always crashes out. What I mean is that whenever Donald Trump is in political, public relations, or polling trouble, he always creates a new train wreck to divert attention. It's like the rotating credit card debt of outrage. Get in trouble on tariffs? Send in the troops to Los Angeles. Get in trouble on the Republican budget bill and Medicaid cuts? Send in the troops to Washington, D.C. Bad inflation numbers and stagnating jobs numbers? Try to steal 5 seats in Congress. It's a known and predictable pattern. The part that's theoretical, that we can't know for sure, is whether that's the underlying reason behind Trump's erratic and dangerous behavior over the last week when it comes to Russia's vicious war in Ukraine. A new Reuters Ipsos poll from today shows that Donald Trump's approval rating has sunk to its lowest level, 40% overall. And he just launched his entire Texas predatory gerrymandering scheme to try to steal those 5 more Republican seats in Congress on the belief that Hispanic voters on the Texas South border would continue to favor him at the rates they did in 2024. But that new poll shows that his approval rating among Hispanic voters is down to 32%. So, at a moment when his popularity is tanking and the economic numbers are cratering, Trump suddenly decides to do a big showy push on Russia's war in Ukraine. And the thing is, it's not just how outrageously pro-Russia, how easy to manipulate Trump has been. It's how erratic he's been. It's the roller coaster that he's taking us through in the past 96 hours with the fate of millions of people on the line that's truly dangerous. Now, this morning on The Daily, the New York Times podcast, the foreign affairs reporter Michael Schertz took us through just a small piece of this, and here's some audio from Trump. I think it's worth hearing this just for a minute.
Any consequences if Vladimir Putin does not agree to stop the war after your meeting on Friday?
Yes, they will. Yeah.
What will the consequences
there will be
be?
consequences.
Sanctions, tariffs?
There will be, I don't have to say, there will be very severe consequences, yes.
And then he turned around and after that meeting came out and his statement seemed to align more fully with what Vladimir Putin had desired.
Right now, we're going to stop really 5, 6, 7,000, thousands of people a week from being killed. And President Putin wants to see that as much as I do. So, again, Mr. President, I'd like to thank you very much. And
he jettisoned the idea that a ceasefire was a prerequisite for further talks. He said that he was okay with the two sides continuing to fight while the details of a peace deal came together.
In other words, it was a complete Alaska snow job. By Sunday night, Trump had posted on Truth Social that President Zelensky of Ukraine can end the war with Russia almost immediately if he wants to, or he can continue to fight. He said there will be no getting back Crimea and no going into NATO by Ukraine. Now think about this. This is a guy who literally had a book ghost written for him called The Art of the Deal. His entire identity is around negotiating deals. And in this negotiation, he's already given away key concessions on the things that Putin wants most. He rolled out the red carpet, literally, and said, ending the war is up to Zelensky. There doesn't have to be a ceasefire first. So Zelensky literally has to negotiate at gunpoint. Ukraine can't get into NATO. And it's a complete, giveaway. Crimea is gone. Fiona Hill, who is Donald Trump's first-term Ukraine and Russia expert, said that Trump has, this is her quote, completely ceded the narrative to Vladimir Putin. Ukraine is just basically getting as a concession for the Russians to stop fighting. This is Putin's way all the way through 25 years of his presidency. I'm going to beat you up, and my concession is that I stop beating you up. That's why yesterday we had what Politico called a family intervention. All of Europe's top leaders coming to the White House to try to stop Trump from giving away the rest of Europe too. Now, personally, I like Andy Borowitz's suggestion that Trump should give away Florida. Just saying. Now, clearly, look, It's good news that there seems to have been some progress in that European meeting. Trump treated Zelensky much better than during his February ambush and seemed to agree to participate in security guarantees for Ukraine. But at the same time, again, it's the fact that he's so erratic, that he's so all over the place, that has the entire world on edge. And of course, it should have all Americans asking, what will a cornered Trump who feels under political pressure do next? Now, no one can know the answer to that. But one of the best experts on trying to hazard a guess is Shane Almgren, the author of The Trumpland Diary, which is one of the truly outstanding investigative Substacks out there. And he focuses on, I guess, the general theme of the Trump insanity. Shane, welcome back.
Howdy, sir. Good to have another meeting with you. Looking forward to this.
Yes, it's not necessarily good news that you and I are meeting like this.
It never is.
Right. It seems to be a sign that maybe things are going badly on the Trump front. But here we are. Let me start out with this. What do you make of my whole thesis that Trump has initiated this big push on Ukraine and Russia because he's feeling cornered, because he's seeing the economic numbers, because he's seeing the polling numbers, and he's looking for something showy and performative and the rotating credit card debt of outrage? Am I onto something there? I mean, you're the Trump whisperer.
Yeah, I think you nailed it. And I think we can expound on that a little bit. Like you said, he's erratic. And anytime he gets cornered, he tends to lash out. But he also, what constitutes cornering for him is basically challenging him on promises that he made, because he loves the promises made, promises kept kind of moniker, and all of MAGA is willing to echo that. And his whole, ever since The Art of the Deal was penned by Tony Schwartz, he's championed himself as the consummate deal maker. It's part of the Trump brand. I'm a deal maker. I'm a winner. And what we've learned is that he's basically just a bloviating hype man. He promised us 90 deals in 90 days. I think we got 2 firm deals and 3 more tentative in the works that were not quite done. He told us on the campaign trail that he was going to end the Ukraine-Russia war as soon as he got elected. He wasn't even going to wait for the inauguration. And that drew out for a while. And then he was going to end it within 24 hours of taking the White House. And now we're like day 208, 209. He doesn't make deals. He boasts about deals he's going to make. And then he comes back and either just gaslights everyone and said, we actually did it. And, some of us bother to fact check that, and the red hats just lap up the Kool-Aid. But when people start to push back, you said 90 deals in 90 days. You said end the war in 24 hours. We're still here. His thin is too skin to know how to deal with confrontation. That's what, when you see interviews and they lob him softball question. It doesn't even have to be a question. Sir, would you say your presidency is going good or great? I like this guy. And thank you this is a great reporter right here. Thank you for that wonderful question. And if you
Mr. Burns, your campaign has the momentum of a runaway freight train. Why are you so popular? You have to be at least this old to get that Simpsons reference. Yeah. Sorry, please go on.
Conversely, when you find a journalist who actually does their job and will ask a hard-hitting question, and it's getting rarer and rarer, but a follow-up question. You're a nasty reporter. You have terrible ratings. Your outlet is going in the tubes. You guys are going to fold. It's disgraceful. You should be embarrassed for asking that. He's not a person. As much as he can dish it out, he can't take it back by the spoonful. And yeah, in an interview, his tendency is to lash out with an insult. On the national stage, it's to lash out with a spectacle. And we got to consider how much of the Epstein pressure. That's a big one.
All right. So actually, let's go there, because Jim Williams took us there. And I have to say, people in chat family, you are on your game today. My goodness, I can't, I know some people like to listen to this as a podcast later. So I have to shout out the Cynthia Rice saying that Pedo King Cankles looks like shite lately. I mean, that's just, oh my gosh, the parsimony
You're right.
of
You nailed that one.
yes, Cynthia, you are on it. And I do like the hypothesis here from Jim. Jim, you're probably speaking as you usually do with some insight here because you, Shane, you're kind of an expert on this, and I want to get back to the Ukraine thing, but this is actually quite troubling. There was a New York Times lead story that quickly evaporated a week ago that Russia had penetrated the federal court system and has access to unknown files. This is disturbing. That led me to post on Substack Notes, and I hope people are following me on Substack Notes, that this reminds me a lot of Donald Trump on the campaign trail in 2016 saying, hey, Russia, if you're listening, release the rest of Hillary Clinton's emails. Oh, okay. Hey, Russia, if you're listening, which surely you are, since my forebears fled from your forebears. So, fuck
and the
you.
next day, those files he requested, they got dumped on WikiLeaks.
Oh, yeah, it's convenient how that works. So, Vlad, buddy, pal, if you have the Epstein files, let him out. You got him. I mean, have you been following this Russian hacking of the court system story? Like, this is this more disturbing than maybe the media has given it coverage for?
I haven't followed it closely enough to carefully break it down, but I do know that one of the key tools in leverage is that once you give away your leverage, then you no longer have it. So if this is something that they actually did have, the longer they hold it over Trump's head, the longer they can make him jump through hoops and do what they want. So I wouldn't expect it to come out if they did have it. So I think asking them to release it, it's leverage they've got if in fact they've got it.
Well, speaking of leverage, that was one of the points you had brought up before about the art of the deal. And look, I'm about to sound like a douchebag. I'm looking forward to this. This is great. You ready?
Bring it on.
Okay, here we go.
Let's see if we can out-douche each other.
I'm still, oh yeah, an amazing YouTube segment. Okay, here it is. I'm going to sound like such an ass. I actually took the Harvard Business School course on negotiations. It was part of what was offered as part of my master's in public policy. And I took it. And I am pretty confident. Oh, look, I have it right here. I didn't actually plan this. I literally pulled it up for a different reason. Here is my grad school negotiation textbook. There it is, right there. I am positive that conceding major points is not a wise course in any negotiation. And if you follow Timothy Snyder, the Yale historian, or really any other Russia expert, it is astounding how much ground Trump has conceded in the last 96 hours. He just literally gave it away. I need to show this image. This is courtesy of Fred Wellman, recent guest, and his Substack, another one that I can strongly recommend. So this is American
you would bring up this picture. If you didn't bring this up, I was going to. So good job.
Oh, do you want to narrate what people are looking at here for people listening later? This is astounding.
Folks, what we are looking at right now is the U.S. military on their knees on the tarmac, literally rolling out a red carpet for Putin's presidential jet that's landing. So,
and I have to point out that not only is our military literally bowing down to the Russians, but Sergei Lavrov would shortly emerge from that jet wearing a USSR parka or some overgarment. This is like right back to Melania's "I don't care, do you" moment. Like, he knows what's on that piece of outerwear. So this is literally us rolling out the red carpet and them coming down, USSR reborn, to step all over us. It is pretty astonishing. So just back to the deal-making part of this. Again, you have read more deeply into the Trump pattern than most. You literally write the Trumpland diary. I mean, in what you've seen, is Trump truly this bad a negotiator? Is this like his MO? Is he actually bad at this? Or, is he actually better at this usually? And this is an unusual circumstance.
No, that's a great question, an astute observation. I know if you go to business school, they will often have curriculum and studies where, as an investor or a businessman, people will study Warren Buffett for his business making acumen, his investment choices. And conversely, they will study Donald Trump as a case study in the worst possible way to do things, because it seems like the only way he's able to achieve his outcome, and this is kind of negotiations 101. It's helpful to define the outcomes you're trying to achieve. And there's some other ideas like whoever talks first loses. So you wait for the other guy to make a suggestion. And this doesn't matter if you're doing in a job interview, when it comes to discussing salary, let them make the offer, then you make the counter offer. You don't shoot something out first. Trump is one of the few negotiators who will tell the other side, either on Truth Social, whatever social media platforms he's got, in press conferences, exactly what he's going to try to hope to get. So if somebody wanted to negotiate him to that, they know to start higher, but then he'll come in and he'll make the concession before they've made the counter offer. So it's, I'm willing to pay $100 for this item, and he'll walk in, 50. And
yes, the master of negotiating against yourself. I mean, I have to agree with Cynthia, who, as always, I mean, you just keep outdoing yourself with the Cynthia Rice. Yes, it is a well-established thing. And if you want to reference back, I had Greg Olear on this show a few weeks ago. I've had Craig Unger on this show, who have meticulously documented just how much dirt Putin has had on Trump since the 1980s, back when Trump was using Trump Tower as almost literally, not literally, because I'm one of the last people in America who will not use literally metaphorically, but almost literally used Trump Tower as a Russian laundromat, was allowing Russian oligarchs to launder through real estate, to launder their ill-gotten gains. There's quite an amazing history. It's worth looking into. But Cynthia, you are 100% right on all of this. What do you read, Shane, into the fact that the White House is sort of putting out signals, like you never know what's coming when they're on background? So they went on background with Politico this morning, and they were all on their talking points, like, well, this was great. Europe, this whole meeting yesterday was good, and Trump is serious, and people are really enthused about the fact that he said he's going to give security guarantees for Ukraine. Then you have Steve Bannon coming in, and as he so often does, being the turd in the MAGA punch bowl, and basically saying on his pod this morning, or yesterday morning, quote, "I'm just lost how the United States offering an Article 5 commitment for a security guarantee to Ukraine is a win for the United States." Basically, what he's saying is, Donald Trump, I'm drawing a red line here. See what I did there? Do not give security guarantees because, once again, I believed you when you said America first. We are not getting involved in anything having to do with Europe. We do not care. So, you have several days of Trump knuckling under with abandon to Putin, literally bowing down. And then you have, so let me show you another image here. Image. You have this meeting where Trump kind of had his ass handed to him and knew it and is super uncomfortable. This is a live shot. Like, I haven't manipulated this shot. I urge people who are listening on audio to check out the video here so you can see this image. I know, like, a still photo can capture you in an awkward face moment, but like,
this almost looks like a cartoon. It's the facial expressions are so pronounced, and you can tell what each man is feeling, and it's so obvious. You don't have to be like a CIA interrogator or body language expert to understand what you're looking at here.
Yeah, I mean, this is Trump giving a my proctologist is not being kind to me today expression, and Vladimir Putin saying, I enjoy my job as proctologist. It's essentially what it is. It's like, this is gruesome to look at. And then you have the forced family photo, the NATO family photo from yesterday, which is this. And it's like, see, we're all on the same page here. Shane, what do you believe? What do you believe is actually going on? Because I do not buy that Monday's new leaf is more real than Friday's smirk photo. And my supposition is that Trump is going to continue to fold and continue to knuckle under. I take no relief. I don't feel any better having seen this big Europe meeting. What do you read into it?
Well, all right, we're going to move into conjecture territory.
Yes, but you are an expert conjecturer, so I trust you more than
coming
I
up
trust
with
me.
theories that sometimes, occasionally, don't bear out. First off, I was glad that the European leaders came with Zelensky. I know their goal was that he not get ambushed again and kind of humiliated like Trump and Vance did last time. So they were there, I think, for moral support and maybe to reiterate some of the talking points. The fact that Trump kept it cordial a little bit, and again, because he said he was possibly going to call Putin while they were there and get him on a phone call, and then I guess it was later in the afternoon, it was 1 a.m, and Trump said he called Putin, and Putin answered. The whole convivial thing, I think, gives Trump an excuse to tell the nation, look what I'm doing, instead of putting on a circus act like we did last time. I'm genuinely trying to negotiate in good faith while not actually negotiating in good faith, because again, he made the concessions in the meeting with Putin on Friday. Zelensky has said some things that are off the table for them. Trump is sort of unilaterally decided what concessions he's going to get Zelensky to make. It was hard. I don't know if you saw the hot mic moment that Trump got caught on. He was talking to Macron, and the hot mic caught him saying, he wants to make a deal. I think he really wants to make a deal for me. And they were... It seemed in Trump's mind.
I shouldn't laugh so much at that, but that's so like, oh, come on.
It was the moment, if you can find it on video, right before he had everybody sit down around the table. But yeah, I think Trump in his mind honestly does believe that he is the master negotiator he imagines himself to be. I think there's like the angel and the demon on his shoulders, where he thinks of himself that way, but he knows what Zelensky has said he's willing to concede and what Putin has said he's not willing to compromise. I think he knows that he doesn't have a concession on his hands. I think he knows that he's not any closer to solving this now than he was 6 months ago. And he's got to at least put, I don't know if his handlers or his team or whatever. I think there was probably a group chat about how to approach Zelensky to maintain this kind of air of decorum, because the Marjorie Taylor Greene's boyfriend, who was the one that asked Zelensky about his suit last time, pointed out the suit this time, and then Zelensky had that good kind of comeback. He said, "Yeah, I have a good suit now. I changed. You're still wearing the same suit. You didn't change." Which and the whole office had a good chuckle at that. So there was an air of sort of friendliness, whereas the last time it was hostile, but there was no progress made. But that air of friendliness and camaraderie, I think, allows Trump to go pretend like he's trying to be serious about this.
I have an ongoing theory, and I'm going to go to a comment here in the chats from JJ. I haven't seen you before, JJ. Welcome. Reminding me the exact wording of Melania's jacket. It read, "I really don't care, do you?" I think that's an important leitmotif that runs through everything having to do with Trump. He really doesn't care. I mean, remember, he started all of this to sort of, ride the fame wave and to flatter himself and to sell steaks. And he doesn't really care or know about the details. And the other thing that I think usually explains a lot of what's going on with Trump is he thinks in terms of TV. He's a creature of television. He was made by TV. His entire career, his financial existence owes itself to television. He was bankrupt. He was essentially not like his 6 actual bankruptcies, but he was literally almost entirely out of money when he was saved by Mark Burnett and the creation of The Apprentice. He was financially saved. That reinvigorated him. He was once again, by the way, this is just a sidebar. He was once again literally almost out of money until the Truth Social scam saved him once again, just 2 years ago. It's absolutely astonishing. But Trump thinks in terms of TV. And I find that if I try to explain his behavior through the lens of television first, it helps me. It helps me to rationalize, like, okay, in his mind, he's thinking of narrative arcs. He's thinking about characters that he can introduce. He's thinking like a soap opera. What's going to happen in this episode? What's a twist? What's unexpected? What's a conflict that's going to drive the narrative forward? And so I see a moment like the NATO family photo juxtaposed with a moment like Trump, who was saying in the comments, Putin can't even keep a straight face because he's just put one over on Trump so badly. And Trump is so visibly uncomfortable. I see that through the lens of television. I see that as Trump. There's nothing real about what came out of the meeting with the European leaders on Monday. What I think Trump was looking for was, here is a dramatic twist in the narrative. Maybe he's going to the Ukraine side of this. I don't know. Maybe he's on the Putin side. I don't think he knows. And it just goes back to my opening spiel here, which if people missed, I hope is worth it. I think it's worth it because I was putting out the idea that it's his erraticness. It's that he doesn't know where he's going with millions of lives on the line that should truly make people nervous. So I've just thrown a lot. I just said a lot of things, but what do you make of my TV episodic lens thesis for understanding Donald Trump?
I think that's spot on. It's one of the reasons he's always talking about ratings or viewership. If a news outlet comes out and reports a story that he likes or gives him compliments, well, it's a great outlet. They terrific ratings. If it's a little harder hitting piece, well, their ratings are in the tube. I recall him talking about a televised session of Congress. I don't remember if it was the Jan 6 hearings. I think it might have been, talking about how bad it was for ratings. And it's like, it's the government. It's not, primetime television. But and his constant statements about how his generals or staff or whoever looked like they were right out of central casting.
Yeah.
Like he has this visual in his head of what TV people made for TV people, which is why I think we have a whole lot of the cast of characters that were TV personalities. I mean, I think Trump has hired 30 people off Fox to be in his previous and this administration in some government position that they're grossly unqualified for, but they've got a face for TV, and that's kind of all he needs.
Right. Right. It's like the way to understand Ronald Reagan was to think in terms of movies, right? It's like the moment when he called military uniforms costumes. And it's like, Mr. President, we call them uniforms. But he was thinking in terms of movies. There was a moment that my mentor, who I wrote about, who recently passed away, David Gergen, when he was working for Reagan, talked about where Reagan was beginning to lose his memory and the dementia was seeping in. And he would get confused right before going on television for an address, but he would see himself in the playback monitor next to his teleprompter. And he saw his image within the screen and he said, there he is. And he clicked in. It's because Ronald Reagan was a creature of movies. Donald Trump is a creature of television. And again, I don't say all of this to doom scroll people and to be relentlessly negative. And look, I hope that there's something real here to this moment that we saw with your
idea. I don't know. Did you ever read Rick Riley's book, Commander in Chief, How Golf Explains the Trump has?
No. That sounds good. Tell me more.
Okay, so Rick Riley was multi-award-winning sports writer, wrote the back column on Sports Illustrated for a ton of years, and just in his whole family, they were avid golfers. And so he wrote in terms of just golf, explaining how some of Trump's policies, the moves that he did on the global stage were predictable because he did the same kind of thing in golf. And he said golf is the thing, it's of all the sports, it reveals your character the most because there's no umpire or referee and you have to call fouls on yourself. And he listed examples of different players that were from the high school level up to the pros that were at one time in a position to win a tournament or something, and they disqualified themselves or gave them a stroke penalty that nobody else saw because they knew that was, the gentleman's code. And telling about all the times of his cheating and kicking the balls and trying to scam Tiger Woods and the way he deals with golf courses, the way he pitches golf courses. At the time, I think he had 13 and every single one was the most beautiful one in the world, even though none of them were in the top 100. And it was a great look into an avid golfer who golfed with Trump multiple times, explaining how he behaved through the lens of golf. I think it would be a great idea if somebody did that same thing, like you just said, through the lens of television, and then maybe even a third one just through the lens of real estate, because those seem to be his only three.
Yes. Right. Or I don't know, Diet Coke, maybe. I have to go back for a second and we can close out on the Ukraine Russia topic here and move on to some of the other kind of associated things. And we've got our segment coming up with our worth knowing intern who comes in. We bring in Nicholas to tell us some things that are worth knowing. But I want to go back to this comment here from Whisper. You've cornered the market on an awesome YouTube handle there, my friend. Or maybe your dog has. I bet Putin has a copy of the Epstein files, plus a whole lot more dirt on Felon 47. It's just an interesting dirt connection. There you go. Dot connection exercise here to bear in mind that it came to light that there was this penetration by Russian hackers of the federal court system with all kinds of information. Who knows what? Probably Trump's intel chief. Probably Tulsi Gabbard knows what is potentially compromised there. And within 4 days of that coming to light, we got this photo. We got the photo of Putin lording it over Trump. And, we've conjectured, again, we can't know for sure. We've conjectured for decades just how much dirt Russia has on Trump. But it is a stunning coincidence to me that more information gets hacked by Russia, and within days, we have Trump folding so hard and so fast.
This might be an interesting little tidbit for your audience to make a connection. First off, we can cover a couple highlights. You mentioned the Trump Tower being a Russian oligarch money laundering racket in the 80s. That was sort of a poorly kept secret. And Trump has seemed to just sort of be a magnet for Russian oligarchs and money laundering and getting into trouble. Because after, I don't know, I think it was his third bankruptcy in the 90s, American banks stopped lending him money and he had to go over to Deutsche Bank to get loans. Deutsche Bank had gotten fined billions for being basically a hub for Russian money laundering. So now Trump is associated over there. I know I believe it was around 2009 or 10, another sports writer was golfing with the Trumps, and it was not long after the housing bubble and banks weren't lending money, and they had asked, I believe it was Eric Trump, you guys don't buy these things with cash. Who's giving you the money? How are you getting out loans? And Eric Trump had said, we don't need banks here. We get everything we need from Russia. And then there was the whole Epstein connection. There's a lot of people had wondered what was actually the cause of Trump and Epstein's fallout. And Trump has changed the story a couple of times. there was a whole thing. I barely knew the guy, which he barely knows anyone that gets into a little bit of trouble. But he had said he started coming around Mar-a-Lago and acting creepy, which he had been doing that. That wasn't a big secret. Then he had said that Epstein was stealing some of his girls, like poaching them as employees. But there was this story that seems to be more in line. Trump never seemed like anybody who was particularly bothered by someone else's sexual depravity or proclivities. But one thing that did explain it was a real estate battle. And there was a mansion on Palm Beach it got foreclosed and was coming up in a foreclosure auction. And Epstein had bid something like 36 million on the property, was the high bidder, and then had consulted with Trump on how to move the swimming pool to a different spot on the property and thought he was getting advice from Trump. Trump went around behind his back and purchased the property for about 40 million. And as the reporting goes, Epstein he was furious about it for losing the property, and it's floated the idea that this was another real estate money laundering scheme for a Russian oligarch. And then Trump turned around after he closed the deal. He fixed the property up. He never moved into it, and he sold it to a Russian oligarch for, it was something like 95 million. He had made almost doubled his money on the deal, at which Epstein was so furious. Now, this next part is sort of conjecture. But Epstein was so furious. I believe he had gone to Trump and threatened to go to the police and let them know, hey, this was sort of a money laundering. This might have been not on the up and up, and then threatened a lawsuit. And Trump responded by being the one that dropped the dime to law enforcement about Epstein's his thing with the girls. So the fallout, it appears, was due to a real estate battle, and once again involved Russian oligarchs and money laundering. So to this overarching point that we're talking about is, how much dirt does Russia have that they might have hacked? I think it's an interesting question, but I don't think they need to necessarily have hacked anything to have a significant amount of dirt on them. I mean, I think they've got plenty of leverage on them in terms of debt. If they do have other information on him, I don't think it's necessary that they had to hack anything to have gotten it.
Well, and while you were going through that fascinating backstory, I just splashed up on the screen here for anyone listening later, and I'm happy to make this available. Seriously, go to my Substack, hit me up with a message on Note or in the chat. If you're a subscriber, you can chat with me anytime. So go to worthknowing.substack.com. And I'll share this. This is from Professor Ruth May, who's a business professor. UT wrote this up in the Dallas Morning News and put together what I think is the best single diagram. And of course, it's teeny tiny. You probably can't see it on your screen, which is why I'm happy to email this to anyone who wants it as a PDF. I should probably just put it up on my Substack. I can't, it's so valuable because it lays out some of the financial and business interconnections among Russian oligarchs and Trump and prominent Republicans and Vladimir Putin and the Trump administration and his first term cabinet officials. And it is all a giant, obvious web of interrelationships and compromat and corruption. And it's all on the page here, although this is just the tip of the Russian iceberg. And I think it underscores your point, which is maybe they don't need to hack into the federal court system to develop new material on the Epstein files, because they have all they need. Although Trump has been remarkably immune to the Russia information. And so maybe they do feel like they need new stuff. Speaking of new stuff.
Please put that up somewhere, because I think each connection, I mean, that would make a great deep dive kind of, there's it right there. Yeah.
I mean, we
I've
could
got a copy of that.
We need to. I'll email it to you after. I mean, we could do a 12-hour live stream on each branch of this here. It is stunning. And Ruth Bain, I've had her on my podcast before. People can go back and check it out. It's on YouTube. Just Google it.
Do you think we could beat Cory Booker's talking record just on should give it a shot?
I mean, it's really it's remarkable stuff. And she's very, very interesting. I tracked her down. And she was happy to talk about it. It's amazing work. But speaking of other connection points, I do want to bring a couple in because I kind of teased at the top of the show that this isn't all about Russia and Ukraine. My thesis here for anyone who wasn't on is Trump is cornered. His approval rating is at its lowest point ever. His approval rating among Hispanics is at its lowest point of this term. He's banking his entire predatory gerrymandering scheme in Texas to try and snatch 5 seats in Congress on the bet that Latino voters will continue to perform for Republicans in the 2026 midterms like they did in 2024, which is highly suspect at this point. That is not necessarily a good bet. There was a deep dive on Nate Silver's Substack from his second in command, Eli. I'm going to butcher your last name, man. I'm so sorry. McCown Dawson. Saying, look, the Hispanic shift really is critical here with even a moderate blue wave, 2 of the 5 districts that they've just redrawn here. If Texas Democrats win Hispanics 51-49, just 51-49, they'll narrowly carry 2 of these new districts. And so, I think Trump is seeing the writing on the wall. And what do you see him doing? He plays the hits because he thinks in terms of TV. So he goes for reruns of some of his biggest performers, and he tries to forge outrageous new political territory. I want to bring in Nicholas Olbetter, our worth knowing intern, college student, dissipating his summer needlessly, wasting his time here with us. No, you're not wasting your time. This is stuff that's worth knowing. You wanted to bring in one of our worth knowing nuggets that you think kind of ties into all of this. So we're talking about mail-in voting.
Yeah, one of the things that I found recently that was worth knowing was Trump is trying to make a push to completely outright ban mail-in voting, saying yesterday that I'm going to lead a movement to get rid of mail-in ballots, and that he wants to help bring honesty to the 2026 midterm elections. This is a little hard to believe for me, but I think this connects to a couple of other things that have been happening recently. His move to not include undocumented immigrants in the census, which would affect congressional representation in a bunch of states, and also his moves to gerrymander Texas. And all of this is to hopefully gain and keep power as his numbers are decreasing. One thing that is interesting, though, is that numbers for mail-in ballot voting have been increasing within Republicans and Democrats both. So this move sort of hurts him as well, interestingly enough. But with these changes, especially the census, there could possibly be seat gains for the Republicans in states like Louisiana, Missouri, Montana, North Carolina, and a couple of others. And so these changes are small and might not happen. This is a move by him to try and gain power in Congress and for the Republican Party as a whole.
So 2 quick follow-up questions for you. First of all, thank you. I think the connection points are spot on, right? So you see this. Oh, look, I just hit my own microphone. I'm so excited here. You see this connection point to this renewed push to try to remove the counting of illegal immigrants from the census. This follows on an earlier effort that was revealed to be a blatant, transparent scheme to rig the numbers, to jury rig the numbers. See what I did there? In Republicans' direction, it revealed a Republican political consultant whose internal files after he died were turned over to the press by his daughter, where he outright says, I'm not doing this for any other reason than to give Republicans advantages in elections. And John Roberts had to say in the Supreme Court, like, yeah, this is utterly transparent, guys. Try harder. At least cover your tracks a little bit more.
Don't
I have
say
a question
the
for you.
part out loud.
Yeah, exactly. So Nick, you are what, 19, 20?
Yes.
You are from a place I won't reveal where where mail-in voting is prominent. Like, have you, in your opportunity to vote, have you voted in person, or are you like, does your generation, it's like, yeah, of course you vote by mail, like that's how you do it?
I haven't voted in person. I've only ever gotten to vote once, which was in this election. Um, but I think in general, younger people aren't going out to vote in person as often. They'll take vote ahead of time or mail-in ballot vote. And I don't know exactly the information and data on this, but I don't know many people that have gone out to vote in person.
Right. It's just sort of, so I mean, but it is interesting. It is interesting that in 2024 Republicans closed the gap, and it's like, my suspicion is that Trump has got, when he replays the hits, he just picks up wherever the hit last left off. And the last thing he remembers is mail-in voting. It's a scam to rig the 2020 election. Therefore, I don't know. See, here I am repeating election lies in front of both of you. All right. Very, very interesting stuff. Thank you. And we will see you on the next one next week with our mystery TBD guest. Thank you, Nicholas.
Thank you, Nicholas.
Thank you.
I've got some comments on what
Yeah,
Nicholas.
hit me. Shane, what do you think?
So again, this comes to the erraticness, where one day Trump has a gripe with one thing, and then he wants to gripe about the opposite thing that would fix, because during the 2020 election, when they were, half of his supporters in Texas were cheering like stop the count, and then the half up in Michigan were saying count those votes, and even his own people couldn't decide if they wanted him counted or not. They just wanted him up. And then a lot of the states were like, calm down, because he'd come out and declared victory, early. And then like, no, we've got counting to do. We've got stuff, we've got recounts. And he said, we need to have the results on election night, because all this extended time gives the cheating Democrats time for election shenanigans or whatever. They've got ballot dumps. They're bringing in UPS truckfuls of ballots and producing ballots days later from briefcases under the table. So we need to have all the voting done on election night, and we need to get rid of all the machines and just go to, there's no mail-in ballots. There's no because the machine has too many errors. So he wants a process that's going to inherently lengthen the counting, while also whining about how long counting takes and wanting to collapse it down into one day. So the erraticness doesn't even, he can't even focus what he wants to be erratic about. It's, if he's pissed at something on Monday, we need to change X. If it's a different thing on Tuesday, well, let's keep X and change Y. And I mean, he has no interest in, good faith arguments, because he came out on Truth Social, was it yesterday, and said, we've got to get rid of mail-in because the US is the only country in the world that does mail-in ballots. Well, there's 34 countries, if we're going to fact check them. And they're not the oppressive regimes. They're those that are, their democracies are structured very similar to ours. It's Australia and Canada and France and Finland and Sweden and Luxembourg and Liechtenstein. And one of them was Slovenia. I'm like, you could have just asked your wife about that one, dumbass. But
I think this is a funny thing. If you try to report on Melania, you get hit with a cease and desist letter like immediately. I don't think Melania will talk about Slovenia even to her husband, because apparently there's some huge secret going on with her there that she just will not reveal to absolutely anyone. I want to just two quick things on this. One is, I have to point out, and I'm sorry, folks, I've been trying to do my usual like plate spinning exercise where I'm thinking, I'm listening, I'm looking at graphics, I'm listening to Nicholas, and I'm trying to keep up with the fantastic chats we've got going here. I want to point out one from Ann Sanzi. I've been curious about Giuliani's role moving out the Italian mafia to make way for the Russian mob. That's brilliant. That's fantastic. And you know what else that is? That's the plot of LA Confidential. Spoiler alert. Sorry, I should have. I mean, it's a 30-year-old movie. I don't think I'm spoiling. That's literally the plot of LA Confidential, is getting an aggressive someone tied to the police or, you know, a prosecutor to clear out one set of gangsters to make way for another set of gangsters with whom he's got an in. That is spectacular stuff. I love it. But, you know, the other thing I wanted to bring in is you bring up a really interesting point, and I think this was Nicholas's point as well, that you connect the dots among the various initiatives, and they're not just performative. I was making the argument earlier that so much of what should be scary about Trump's behavior on Ukraine and Russia is that it's performative. There's no master plan here. There's not an agenda. There's no substance that goes with it. He's kind of lurching from TV episode to TV episode and narrative arc to narrative arc in his mind with what do I care? You know, I don't care. Do you kind of mindset behind it. And that is concerning. That is really scary with so much on the line. When it comes to all of the dots that we're connecting here on redistricting and voting, mail-in voting, I wonder if there's a little bit more thought process involved. I wonder if an intelligent mind like Susie Wiles is really behind the wheel here, because it does seem to all go in this overall direction. Something Jamie Harrison pointed out on this show last week, I hadn't even thought about. In addition to just trying to hold on to power by holding on to the House and trying to avoid a whole bunch of investigations, don't forget that the Congress is going to do the count in 2028 with who knows what presidential candidate on the line. It is potentially it's some scary stuff. Do you think that this is all part of a coherent political strategy, all of these relatively minor dots that have to do with voting? Or do you think it's more kind of like mental applesauce from Donald Trump?
I think there is a more overarching scheme, and I don't think it's him. And I think we've got good evidence that he's, like you said, I think he's content to just be in front of the camera. And if he could just like golf in the morning and then sign stuff and hold up with his signature and just sign for the cameras, the day he got inaugurated and he came in and there was that pile of executive orders that had been pre-prepared that was straight out of Project 2025. It was, I mean, I know he didn't come up with that. I don't think, and he's always asking, you know, what am I signing here? Oh, that sounds good. What does that mean? I genuinely don't think he understands half of what he's doing. And, you know, contrary to Joe Biden, who clearly had handlers that were trying to hide stuff and make sure he stayed awake, I think Trump's handlers are just trying to make sure he's got something to talk about, put him out in front of the TV, because as long as cameras are on him, he's kind of happy. So I think he's getting talking points that are coming down from bigger minds than his. Not that saying much. I think that's your average second grade classroom. But I think he's given the talking points, and then he's got free reign to phrase those talking points however he wants. And, you know, from one day to the next, he doesn't matter. It doesn't remember how he said it the day before, doesn't care if it's contradictory or not. But no, I don't think this is Trump's agenda. This seems like a conservative GOP-led Heritage Foundation long-term goal.
I want to do some like programming notes here real quick, because unfortunately, window into my life that no one asked for, I had to go pick up my middle son from camp. And he would like nothing better than to be here because he's 12 and he's constantly asking me, can I be on YouTube, Dad? No, you can't be on YouTube, son. Can I do a podcast, Dad? Sure. You can do a podcast. You can use all my software and stuff. And the family will listen to it. But anyway, I literally let him wave his arm from the side, because that's all we'll allow on screen. Anyway, I've got to pick him up from camp. So I've got to go in like 2 minutes. I will close out our last discussion just by saying that I just pitched my editors at Newsweek on an article saying, like, why are we talking about the path to autocracy? Autocracy is here. One of the definitional planks of being in an autocracy is you no longer have free and fair elections. In what world where they're gerrymandering districts such that politicians get to choose their voters and not the other way around, where they're skewing mail-in voting, where they're skewing the ability to access polling places, because you know that's where the National Guard is going into and the next emergency is going to occur. In what world is that not some kind of a not free and fair election. We are in an autocracy. My editors didn't want to do that because they wanted to do something with more of a news hook. I hear you. So I will be coming back with a different article. And it may be, hey, you know what? Let's just give Donald Trump the Nobel Peace Prize already. Let's just do it. If that's what it takes to save tens of thousands of people in the coming months in Ukraine, I'll give it to him. Anything to get him to hold the line. I will. It's like you were saying before, Shane. I will. Frank Bruni wrote this in the New York Times, right? It's like, I'll give him an EGOT. I'll give him an Emmy, a Grammy, a Tony. I'll give him whatever that dude wants.
Give him a green jacket.
Yeah, like, the Trumpland Diary. You are working on a deep dive. Do you want to give a 15-second spoiler why people should subscribe? What's coming up from you?
It's very Trump specific. Every article is Trump related. Right now, I'm working on an article on DEI. The central reason, the conservative attacks on DEI, how they're intentionally misrepresented, and how it actually is our strength, contrary to what Pete Hegseth says, and just a plethora of examples, specifically how the intelligence agencies in the U.S. use them, other government agencies, and then dabbling a little bit in private business. And
it's awesome stuff. And for anyone who's read Shane's deep dives before, they are worth it. They are absolutely worth knowing. We met over your Elon Musk deep dive, which was a total must read. So I commend that to everyone. The Trumpland Diary, shanealmgren.substack.com. And of course, I am the Worth Knowing Substack, worthknowing.substack.com. I'm Matt Robeson. I have got to, I went on with Jamie for another like 20 minutes after this. I wish I could do a longer one with you today. We will be back next week. I will have you back as often as I can.
Can I squeeze in one last thought?
Squeeze in, please, pitch.
So after the meeting with Putin on Friday, Trump came out and said that Putin had told him that we needed to get rid of the mail-in ballots because that was the root cause. That's what the 2020 election was rigged, and we needed to get rid of it.
You did it.
I don't think he has had a free and fair election in like 20 years in Russia.
Oh, you connected all the dots. You did it. You are the.
I'm sorry, I waited till the very end. I'd forgotten that one point.
No, it's hard. It's hard to keep all the moving parts going, especially when we have people making other brilliant points like that in the chats. No, thank you for closing us on that. That is a great dot connection exercise. So thank you to Shane Almgren. Thank you to everyone in the chat, as always, for really enhancing this experience for each other and for me, and bringing all of your knowledge and incisive points to this conversation. I hope people will continue to come subscribe to the Trumpland Diary and to worthknowing.substack.com. I will see you all next week. Take care. Stay safe. Be well.
Thanks a lot, Matt. This was fun.